Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVey, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. And today we're talking with Susan Austin Taylor. You! Hi, Susan. Thanks for joining us and sharing um, some of your amazing experiences with us.
Thanks for
Welcome.
asking me to be on.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So if you could, as I mentioned, we have about 30-40 minutes. And I was wondering if you could share just a little bit about yourself, maybe a little background on yourself.
Well, I've been doing astral projection since I was a child. It started probably when I was about 5 or 6 years old. It was spontaneous. Started with sleep paralysis, worked its way into astral projection. And so I've done a lot of public speaking about and workshops on the subject of astral projection. That's one of my favorite subjects to talk about because it's just, this
Yeah,
is like, it would be the best gift you could give everyone in the world, just one astral experience, just one, if just one for everyone, it'd be great.
absolutely. I agree. So when you were 5, though, you didn't know what was going on, right?
Oh,
When you
no,
were
no.
having the sleep paralysis, were you afraid?
Yep. Yeah, I was afraid because, um, well, it's scary. I felt like I wasn't breathing and I didn't know what it was. And it was something I wasn't really inclined to tell my parents all of the weird things that I was experiencing because I really have had a very paranormal life. And it began in childhood. And so, no, I didn't talk about it to my parents or anybody. I didn't know where to go to the doctor. Um, and I figured that's what that's what it would happen. So no, it went on for probably months and months. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I guess, um, and I would wake up in the morning, especially if I woke up in the morning early. I like to sleep in. I like to, if I could. My father didn't want any of us to sleep in. I mean, he was real, ex Navy. Just I don't know. He just. But if I stayed in bed for a little while after I'd had enough sleep, I would go into sleep paralysis.
Mhm.
Always,
So
every morning.
probably most people watching will know, but can you describe what sleep paralysis is?
It's there's a technical word for it. I'm not sure if it's cataplexy or catalepsy. I'm not sure. I don't know, but it's where your body, you lose feeling in your body. It's like you feel like you're not. You can't feel your body. You can't move your body. The only thing that I could move was my eyes. I could always move my eyes, but couldn't move my head. Nothing would move.
No.
And you don't have any sensation of your body, so you're not aware of your breathing. And that was the thing that frightened me the most. Was I thought that maybe I'd stopped breathing. It feels like you're dying at first. When you're a child, you just think you're dying. But it went on for months and months. I mean, a long time. There were times when my dad would come in to tell me to get up. I would be in sleep paralysis and I couldn't move. And if you didn't get up the first time, he'd come back and throw water on you or something and get up. It's time to get up. You
Oh
can't
my.
sleep. So yeah, it was really stressful. It was very stressful. And then one morning, it happened so many times and I was so afraid of it, but I was curious too. So one morning, I don't even know what made me decide that was the morning, but one morning it happened. And I always fought it. I had always fought it. If you can wiggle a finger or anything, it stops. You know, it's over. But it's difficult to do that.
Mhm.
But people in sleep paralysis, when they're first having it, will struggle really hard to try and move something to make this stop. So I'd done that for months. One morning I'd had enough, and it started. The sleep paralysis started, and my instinct was to fight it. And I just, for some reason, I remember thinking, I've just had enough of this. If I die, I die. I'm going to see what this is.
Mhm.
So I just laid there and relaxed to see what would happen. And after a minute or so, I still felt okay. I couldn't tell that I was breathing, but nothing bad happened and it began to fade away by itself. and it would just fade away and it would be gone. And it was like, oh, what a relief. What a relief. So I did that for a long time. And then I finally started just going out of body. Just, this was, to me, that was my body going on autopilot, and I didn't know it. And it was a way for me to get out of body a little bit later. And then I started having astral projection experiences. Really, a lot of them started in my teenage years. I mean, a lot. I'd had them before, but a lot. And it just became so common to me that in my adult years, then in my 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s, I would be going out of body sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, 4 or 5 days a week, because I was just devoted to it,
Wow.
to understand what this was and what could be done with it. So yeah, I've logged a lot of hours out of body.
About what age did you start studying and researching this to find out?
I have never researched it. A friend gave me a book, a Robert Monroe book.
Mhm.
When I was in my 20s, and I read it, and I remember reading it. I was just delighted to read it, to find out that this is, oh, okay, this is something, because I didn't know when I was young. I didn't know this was something that people could experience. I thought it was an anomaly, and I thought that it was something wrong with me, probably, that this was happening, but I still wasn't going to tell anybody. But I did read the Robert Monroe book. I liked it very much, and I've read other books. I've read a lot of books that about astral projection. It's a good subject, but I've never really actually studied it, because I think it's so subjective. You can learn a lot from people who've written books about it. You can learn so much, but for myself, I've been doing it for so long. I thought, if I change it up now and do what this guy's saying or this woman's saying, it might mess me up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would read things and just, it was like interesting, but no, it didn't change anything that I was doing, because it already worked. I was already doing it.
You mentioned something earlier. Did you say you had some other paranormal activity in your life as a child? I just wanted to
Oh
ask
yeah.
that real quick.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
so could you just expand on that a little bit?
Oh, I could see people in my room. I could see spirits. Um, I remember I was a spinner. I love the spinning in the yard in the daytime. You get out and spin and spin and spin, lay down and just crash and lay down. And
Uh-huh.
I would lay down and watch in the grass and watch birds flying. And I think the earliest thing, probably the thing that got me out of body was that in the beginning, when when my mom would be hanging clothes out or whatever, and I would be out playing in the yard, and I would just spin and spin and spin and flop on the ground on my back and lay there and watch the birds. I wanted to be up there with the birds. I wanted to soar like they were soaring. They would be up on these thermoclines, and it was
Yeah.
just, oh, wow. And it was just such a longing that I think it was a natural thing for me to just, okay, well, here we go. Let's just,
Interesting.
yeah.
And so when you first started going out of body, was it always what some call the near earth realm, like near your
Yeah.
home and near your neighborhood? And
Yeah.
did you fly around and visit people?
I did. I did. For a long time, I stayed close to my house. My favorite first thing to do, because I wasn't that sure of myself, would be just to go through the roof and lie down on the roof on top of my house and watch the stars at night or whatever. But I would stay close to my home, because I just, I'd venture a little bit until I really,
Mhm.
really was sure of myself. But I did stay close to home, and I would go all through my house and around my house and in my yard, and finally, in my 20s, I think in my late 20s, I started asking friends, is it okay if I come to your house and, just look around, and I'll tell you what I saw and whatever. And you can verify it later if maybe, and if you sense me there, you can tell me. So I did start practicing that with friends. I had several friends that would let me do that. And so, yeah, I would go and see friends, and I would look on top of their shelves and see what was up there, so I could tell them later. I saw this weird thing up there. It's green. I'm not sure what it is. Or I saw this thing. It's a little metal figurine, but I can't really, it's astrally. It's a little, sometimes it's hard to tell small things what they are. And but yeah, I would do that. I went in and to their houses, and you know, if they were leaving in their car, I would fly over their car and follow them to see where they were going.
Wow.
And we would connect later, you know, call, and we would talk about it to verify, you know. And some of them could tell, some of them said that they could tell that I was there. They thought that I was there, but they didn't see me. But it was fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun.
Gee, so that's great that you were able to get this confirmation. Not everybody can do that.
No, I wanted the confirmation. I did want the confirmation because I figured that, you know, if you can, um, and I wish that before a few of these people passed away that I'd gotten them to write down what they experienced. But, you know, they told me, we talked about it, and we had wonderful times. We had wonderful experiences. And the ones that did know I was there, it was
Mhm.
it was a lot of fun. That confirmation was a lot of fun.
Were any of them or any of your future friends able to get out of body and you could meet up in the astral together and then
No,
verify it later?
none of them were ever able to get out of body. I was able to pull some of them out of body though, because that's something that you can do. So
Hmm.
I actually learned how to do that. Hmm, I don't remember the year. It was the early 90s though, I would say. It was the early 90s or late 80s, maybe the 80s. That I was lying in bed one night, and I was just lying there relaxing, trying to go to sleep, and sleep like this, put my hands up on my chest. And I felt someone grasp my hands, which was strange. It was very solid. And just, I went whoosh, and I was out of body. And someone was still holding my hands. And it was this very long, it felt like 15 minutes of travel, but I know it wasn't that long. And then when I came down, the person was still holding my hands. And it was a man. I didn't recognize him,
Hmm.
but you know, he did say he was somebody that knew me, you know. And after he told me that, and we talked for a little while, then I understood, yes, this is somebody I've known from another place or whatever. But he was the person that showed me that this can be done. You know, that was the importance of that experience, because
Yes.
well, if somebody can do that to me, maybe I can do that to someone else. So I did try. My best friend at the time, I told my husband and my best friend I was going to try with them, and I was able to pull my husband out first, and and he was so tired. He was very sleepy, and if you're really sleepy when you astral project, it can make you can may get out, but you usually will pop right back in because your body kind of needs the energy. So I pulled him out of body, and I decided, well, we'll go fly out over the bay. You know, I was going to hold his hand, not let go. We'll fly out over the bay, swing around there, and come back, and then back in, and you know, he'll remember. And so we took off. I took off with him, and so it would be that way for me. And we flew out over the bay, and I looked over at him, and it was just like I was pulling along somebody that was just floating, sleeping. It was the strangest thing. And I let go of his hand to see what would happen. He was gone just like that. And so I circled back, and I went back, and I woke him up, and I said, hey, do you remember anything that just happened? He didn't have a memory of it because he was too sleepy. So if you're really sleepy, it's not the greatest time
Right.
to do it and remember it. You can still do it when you're sleepy. You can still get out of body. In fact, it's actually a good time to get out of body. You just might not remember it as well.
Oh.
So yeah, so I tried with him several times. I don't think he ever remembered it. Later, he had his own astral experiences himself. And then a friend of mine, I'd asked her. And so I said, well, let's try. We're going to start trying. And if it takes, you know, it may take weeks, it may take months, you know, but if you remember anything, you call me and tell me, and I will have already told my husband so we can verify, you know.
Hmm.
And one night I did get her out. I did go to her house. I pulled her out of body, and we did silly things. You know, we went to a store in the middle of the night, just a big Neiman Marcus store. I think I talked about this in the astral projection meetup group. But we just kind of explored Neiman Marcus, and we talked to a security guard who was there. You know, if you talk to someone who's physical when you're astral, they will telepathically, they'll usually answer you, and they won't remember what happened.
Oh,
I just think they were staring, or think they just kind of, you know, just zoned out for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I've had thoughts in my head and I think,
Yeah,
well, where did that thought come from?
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
someone talking to me. I don't know.
That we had some fun, and we went out a few times together, and I was able to pull her out, and it was fun, and I tried that on several people. I had other people tell me to come pull them out, and the other people usually, I think I've pulled about 4 or 5 people out of body in my life. My kids, I pulled my kids out of body.
Now,
And
some of these people have remembered, like your friend when you went to the Neiman
oh, she
Marcus.
remembered. She absolutely remembered. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she remembered all of it. And I'd already told my husband. So I was talking on the phone to her. We were laughing because he already knew. So I was just listening to her tell her experience of it. And it was the same as mine.
Oh,
She remembered it.
cool.
My kids didn't remember when I pulled them out. They were pretty young when I pulled them out, but I wanted to take them to cool places early in the morning. We flew out over Monument Valley one time just because I thought that would be fun for them, but they didn't. They didn't remember it. They both later had astral projection experiences of their own. So
Are your experiences when you've been around the near Earth and you're flying around, is it very solid for you and real, like we're like real right now, or would you describe it differently?
well, um, it depends on the heaviness of your astral body. You need to do near Earth stuff. You need to have a heavier astral body. You want it to be more, to pull more energy into it so that you can interact with things. Like you can touch a person instead of your hand going through them. They can feel you maybe.
Mhm.
But when I first started doing a lot of astral projection, I actually acquired a guide very early. Someone who met with me. It was a woman who met with me and would show me all kinds of things to do out of body, just like a training thing. And she would have me, pass through a tree, just but walk by a tree and let my arm go through it, but not the rest of me, and tell me what I felt with my arm, and so when I would go out of body in my house, I would pass through my walls and I would put my arms out and I could tell where the studs were in the walls. You can feel all of that, but you can either pass through it because your body, your body is a regular astral body. It will pass through solid objects, or you can pull a little more energy into it and touch the objects. You can kind of touch them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, so much. You've had so many experiences. Your guide, you said you met this guide when you were kind of young. Was that someone that was in waking life and was astrally projecting to guide you and help you, or someone who was a non-physical, or do you know?
Non-physical. This was non-physical. I knew that. And it was a woman. Almost always it was a woman. There were times when there would be it was a male presence, a male figure that would do it. So there were several, but it was more often than not, it was a woman who to me looked to be middle-aged, had reddish hair, just, and she had a very good sense of humor, which she needed. When you're when you take someone under your wing, kind of like that, and you're teaching someone, because when you first get out of body, you're so exuberant, and you want to just explore everything and experience everything.
Mhm.
And so her role kind of was like to pull back on the reins and go, here's what we want you to try. I want you to do this, I want you to learn this, I want you to do this. And then that kind of evolved into um, astral projection experiences, because I had offered myself in service when I was a child. I just knew when I was little I'd come into this world for a reason. So
Mm.
I kind of offered myself in service out loud over and over in prayer and
Mm.
different things. So the astral projection experiences, especially with the guides, evolved into a guided sort of thing where they would, I would, and this would be either in the daytime. If my kids were in school, no one was home, I could do it in the daytime. Just go lie down, boom, out of body. But they would take me as I'd gotten out of body, and in the beginning, they created scenarios for me that looked to me very much like real emergencies. And just to
Oh,
see how I would react to them if will you pull back or will you put yourself out there to try to help. And I always put, I mean, it's my nature, I always put myself out there to try to help, but I would do silly things too because I wasn't exactly sure what kind of help was needed at first, and they had to show me that and how to work with people who were in crisis, who had been in an accident, had been injured, were dying or whatever. But in the beginning they created them because as soon as I had reacted and done whatever was expected of me, then it would just fizzle away.
Oh,
And later, that went on for probably a couple of years. And then one day, I was pulled out of body. I didn't see who pulled me out of body. I could just feel, and I was taken to actual accident scenes, then to car wrecks. Car wrecks is how it started, going to hovering over car wrecks and observing what was going on, telling how, you can assess very quickly astrally if a person is going to live or die through an accident. They tell you how to determine all of this stuff, and then what you can do to help them, because sometimes you're actually able to help someone who is going to live, that they're meant to live through it. But you can still offer some help during the emergency. More often than not, these were people who had been injured to a point where they weren't coming back from it. And so the job was to help them cross.
it's interesting. I think a lot of people assume that it's angels or loved ones who have passed on who help you during those times. But here you are still living in the physical, but and you can astral travel and be in the non-physical and be of help and assistance. That's amazing.
It was amazing to me. And I thought, if I'm doing this, other people are doing this.
Yes.
And there were a few times when I would be taken to an accident scene before the accident ever even occurred. People were gathering, astral people were gathering there waiting for it to happen. And you could always tell by how many people were astral there and waiting for the accident, how many people were going to be involved in the accident, how big an accident it would be, because one astral person can take care of, in my experience, about 4 or 5 people, 6, if you have to, 6 or 7 in a group, but 4 or 5 is typical, that one person astrally can tend to that many people. So from the first time I went to a site where a plane was going to come down, it hadn't come down yet, but we were standing in this clearing. There were a lot of trees. It was a forested area, but there was a bit of a clearing that we were all standing in astrally. We were there, we gathered, and we were just discussing it with each other. And, we kind of looked around and we decided from the size of our group, there would be about between 60 and 65 people that would need help. And then the plane crashed and no one survived the crash. This first airplane crash, no one survived it. And there were 62, I believe, at that time. This was in the 80s, mid 80s. I'm trying to remember the exact plane crash because there's been a bunch of.
I was going to ask you, when you went back to body, did you often confirm these accidents?
Oh, absolutely. If there was a real accident happening, I could get up and tell my husband, go turn the television on. There was a plane crash last night, and we would sit and watch the news about it. Mm-hmm. Once it took me about 4 days one time I was at a site of a mudslide. It was the site of a mountain that gave way in Italy. And I wasn't really sure where I was until after this occurred. I knew that they weren't speaking English to me, but I could understand every word they were saying, every single word. And they could understand me telepathically. They could understand me. But it was, I think it was a volcanic mountain, and it was just, they'd had heavy rains, and it just a mudslide through this town, and it had killed some people. It did some damage. I don't. It was back at that time when there was really not much in the way of internet. So you had to catch it on television or a newspaper. So it was about 4 days before I heard what had happened, and that there had been a mudslide over there, and that this had occurred.
So I'm guessing you have not been able to connect with any of the survivors when you've come back to body and maybe been able to connect to them?
Well, there have been cases of people that actually made it through, but if I don't have a name, And I do have some names. I've started, later I started asking for names because I wanted to write the names down because I thought I can contact their families maybe, you know.
True.
And but as I said, the greater percentage of what I worked with weren't people who were going to survive.
Right. And
But
did
some
you
did.
never meet them either? Like they never came to you after passing and saying, by the way, thank you for being there, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
No.
no. I do
Uh,
have some names. I have photographs of some people in a folder that if I know who they are for sure and I have their name, I'll print out a photo and I'll keep it in a folder to remind me of them. But no, I don't think I've ever met anyone because most of them weren't anywhere near me. The saddest part to me about it was that when my own family members started to pass away, and I've lost about 14, I think, in 11 years,
mhm.
um, I I never got out of body, never went out of body to help any of them cross over, and I'm not sure why. I never questioned it because I
Hmm.
would go lie down and think, okay, if I'm supposed to do this, I will go.
Mhm.
But no, with my own family members, um, I never went out of body as they were passing in that time of crisis. I was
Interesting.
able to do that. Other people's families, not a problem. But my own family, no. I would see them later. I could go see them later out of body.
Okay, so you have met up with some of your loved ones who've passed on
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
on the
Oh,
near earth or in the afterlife?
no, not on near Earth. They were in an afterlife, but I call it the meet and greet place. I don't think that that's a permanent place, but I
Meet and
believe
greet.
because there are times when someone will pass away and they don't make contact with me. And I'm understanding now that it's because when they went to their meet and greet place, to the meet and greet place, they just didn't stay there very long. They went on their way after that. But there is a place where we meet up and you can stay there as long as you want to, as I understand it. After you pass, you can stay there. Uh, and make it your home if you want to, but you don't, your growth there is minimal. So for spiritual growth you want to go on to more serious experiences, and but there is a meet and greet place when you die where your family, wherever they've gone, will come back to this area. It's a meeting ground, and it seems very much like this life here. It's almost a duplicate for this here. um, and you're able to go and if you can get there astrally to them, yeah, you can meet with them. You can
You don't
speak.
know the name of it, what they call it, but you call it the
No,
meet and greet.
I've never asked them what they called it. I've just, when I've tried to get out of body to see one of them, it's more of an effort for me for some reason to get there. It's
Oh,
requires intense concentration, and it would tell it took me several tries to actually make this work the first time with an aunt who had passed away, and we planned it before she died. We had talked about it, that I would try to communicate with her and she would try to communicate with me, and she did all kinds of wonderful things right after she died to let us know that she was around, wonderful things. And I finally did manage to get to her. I wanted to know all the things that she was doing since she'd passed, and what her life was like. And she had chosen to pretty much stay there until her husband passed, until her children passed. She had a large home on a lake, a small lake in a hilly area.
okay.
Um, it was very big, very
Do
big.
you know if does everyone who pass on go to the meet and greet, or you may not even have the answer to this question, and then get to choose if they can wait for their spouse to meet them there before they move on? Or for example, I was wondering, this is a common question for somebody who has, and this is kind of a touchy subject, but for somebody who has committed suicide, for example, do you know, um, is there a specific place they go, a different place they go to, or not necessarily?
I've dealt with suicides. I've actually accompanied suicides um, in their passing to the point where they passed, um, and their experience. is, to me, is no different. They still go to the meet and greet place if they need to go there. There are people who have been without family and without many friends, who are real solitary people that I've heard of, and I've heard them talk about it. Um, I've read about it in books that just said that they just bypassed it and went on
Mm.
to more of like a central hub where everybody's coming in and reevaluate your mission, all of this stuff, and then just decide from there where you go, what you do. But the suicide thing kept some of them earthbound, because it's such a dramatic, and there's no coming back from that. And depending on what they had learned in childhood about suicide, a lot of them had a lot of hangups about that, and it caused a lot of them to
Sure.
to just kind of remain. They were I had one guy, and a lot of soldiers, more soldiers than anything
Hmm.
that I've dealt with, that have committed suicide, and active duty soldiers. And
Mm.
they just hung out. I mean, one guy was over in Iraq, and he killed himself. He shot himself, and he stayed there. He hung around there because he said that he had committed. I said he couldn't go on. He could not go on what he was doing there. And but he understood that if he took his life, his understanding was that you don't go anywhere after that. That's it. You've spoiled the afterlife. There is no afterlife for you. You did something that
So
can't.
our thoughts before we die, our mental, what we believe, our beliefs kind of carry over
They do.
and affect what happens
Yeah, they
initially.
absolutely do. Yeah. And I said, no, your soul has to go. And I talked to him. I tried to explain to him. In fact, this is a man that I dealt with 2 nights in a row, trying to convince him to go on, and he said, no, I've lost my soul. He said, when I committed suicide, I surrendered my soul. That's, you lose your soul. And I said, no, 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 you don't. And they're waiting for you. Just all you
Mhm.
have to do is just go, just, this is what you do. And he absolutely would not. There was the only one that I've never been able to convince to go. He would not
Okay.
go. He would not. But
Maybe he did eventually,
I hope he
but
did.
right.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with something called the hollow heavens or hollow hells? And if so, can you
I'm not sure
share?
what you mean.
Well, I've heard that if you have strong religious beliefs, whatever it is, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, you name it, when you similar to what we're just talking about, when you cross over, you really end up in something that's sort of a temporary, depending on how long it takes you to evolve to realize, oh, I don't have to stay here. And it's kind of like a heaven, what you would expect your heaven to be, or your hell, perhaps a hollow hell.
Yeah, it's absolutely colored by if you had a religious upbringing, it's always your experience of the afterlife, your immediate experience of the afterlife is colored by what you were taught in your religion, or what you have come to believe in your life is the afterlife. An atheist, oh, it is so hard to get an atheist
Mm.
to because they understand that they're dead and that there's something here I'm communicating, and it's so confusing for them. They Because they just believed in nothing.
Hmm.
Um, and
Have
they're,
you,
huh?
yeah, I would imagine that would be because they're expecting, well, sort of similar to the one you were talking about who thought, well, I don't get an afterlife. But what about pocket reality? Have you heard of pocket realities?
I'm not sure what that means.
So, because I know you've have a lot of experiences and you've had spirit guides. Is that what you call them? Spirit guides over the years,
Oh, I call
or
them.
guides?
Yeah, that's.
Um, but it's this idea of when you pass, um, you can be tricked in a sense. There are negative entities or something or have their own agenda, and they can kind of trick you into going into this sort of, it's almost like a lucid dream. It's like a subjective reality, and you kind of stay there, and it's all beautiful and wonderful, but it's really not the afterlife. It's not the objective reality. Have you heard of that before?
I've heard of that. I've heard of that. And I would think that that would be a very temporary experience, because there are beings, um, beyond this place who are aware of that, and they're it's like all the people that are trapped on battlegrounds and things, and it may go on for 1,000 years and it seems so horrible that they're there, and why doesn't somebody help them? Well, there's really no time after you pass, so they're not experiencing any passage of time. 1,000 years, 5 minutes, it doesn't make any difference. They're just still experiencing the moment that they had before they passed away. But yeah, there are all kinds of entities and beings out there who will mess with you. If they get a chance, they'll mess with you. They'll try to, try to sway you and oh, come over here. But you have to, that's why focus is so important in astral projection. Your focus has to be so intense on what you actually want to do, or you will get distracted, and everybody will get distracted eventually. Even the people that have been doing it forever, you get distracted by this or by that. And, oh, this is shiny, I'm going here.
What about when you pass on? Aren't there a lot of good helpers around, or is there a mix? Are there negative entities after we pass on that might want to try to persuade us to go the wrong direction?
I've never experienced any working with people who are dying. Myself, I've never experienced anything that was there trying to actively keep them in that experience. It was their own confusion about what happened. Soldiers in combat, in battles, they generally, their problem is they just don't know they died. It happens so fast. Car wreck victims, that's a lot of the time, they have no idea that they passed away. You have to remind them. They have to go back. You have to remind them to play what they were doing up until this point, and then they'll remember. They kind of remember it then after that. But there's just this confusion that keeps them, they just stay where they are. But they're not trapped in time. They're really not trapped in time. They're living a moment. They're just living this never-ending moment.
Would you say, because I've been interviewing, I've been interviewing various people who have had various experiences with their loved ones who have passed on. And so a question that comes up is, a spouse passes on. If the spouse is in a hollow heavens, let's say, or a pocket reality, let's say, can the other spouse who, after they pass, do you know if they'd be able to rescue them, help them get out of that situation?
I don't know if they individually would be able to, if they're permitted to do that, but I would think so. Somebody will, if they notice it, they're going to get help. Even if they don't know how to help them themselves, they will find someone who can. There's always help. There's, it's just, and it may take some time, it takes time with some people. Some people just adapt so quickly. When my father passed away, and he was not a religious man, he really didn't talk about that stuff. We talked a little bit before he died, and I told him all of the things that I did, because he wasn't really aware of everything that I'd done. They just knew that, I go do workshops, I go speak here and go speak there, but we talked about it a lot. And he knew he was dying. I mean, he had leukemia. He knew he was dying. So we talked about what happens after, and I told him what I knew of it. And so I kind of expected, and he did promise us, I make everyone, I make a visitation agreement with everyone that I love. If I die first, I come see you. If you die first, you come see me. So I've done that with everybody. And my father's visit was spectacular. I was surprised by that. I was very surprised by that because, like I said, he was not ever into religion, didn't talk about spirituality very much. He kind of kept his thoughts to himself about all of that. But just a few months after he passed away, I heard him one morning. I was lying in bed. I heard him just, say, "Good morning, Susie," and I was almost wanted to just, don't throw water on me. Because I was used to him when we were little, if we wouldn't get out of bed when we were supposed to get out of bed, he just tossed water on us. And but he said, "Good morning, Susie," and I was still in bed, and I just said, "Good morning, Daddy," and I thought about what I said, and I looked around, I didn't see anything. I was like, shoot, it was right here. Shoot, I could have gotten out or something.
Wow.
Within just a month or so after that, I was lying on the couch one day, and I was You know, it was such a stressful time because the day before he died, my mother went into a nursing home with Alzheimer's. Then my dad passed away the very next day. You know, so it was a very stressful time. And I was lying on my couch one day in this room here, and looking out into the living room, and I had my eyes closed, and I just opened my eyes. You know, I was going to get up, and he was standing there. He was standing like 3 feet away from where I'm sitting. He was standing right there, his favorite outfit, and he was as solid as you or I. He was quite solid, standing there, had this big grin on his face. And I looked at him and I said, "Daddy." And then he just, while he's smiling, he just faded away. He just disappeared. But he did that. He manifested so solidly. I was flabbergasted because I would have expected it from my aunt, from my mother, from all kinds of people, but not from my dad. But he manifested
Interesting.
solidly, quickly. He was fine. He was fine. He had no problem whatsoever where he was.
When some people, I've heard, in near-death experiences, you hear about the light and going into the light. Do you know about that? Is that a thing? Are we supposed to go into the light after we pass, or is that
Well,
also,
my experience of it, because I've read a lot, people saying, "Oh, don't go in that. That's false light. It's a trap. It's a trap." Uh,
yeah,
but anytime that I've ever been with people who were dying, that when that light appeared, I can't even describe the love that comes from that light. It's just so intoxicating, and it's so inviting, and it's home. It just you I've tried on a couple of occasions astrally to go with people, to just go. I'm already this far, let me in, you know. And I'm always sent back, but I've always wanted to try to pass through that light, and I can't. Um, but
why do
I
you think some people say, no, that's a trap? But where
I'm
else would they go?
I don't know. I don't know. For myself, when I've sent people into it, I was quite confident that this was where they were supposed to go. And and the look on the relief on their faces, and the just all tension, everything melts away when they walk into it. When they first walk into it, is it's wonderful. It's just a wonderful thing. I've seen it on many occasions. It's beautiful. I've seen it at times that it looks like a tunnel on its side that's swirling light. I've seen it where it's just up in the corner of a room and it's a light there, just a pinhole or whatever. It's manifested in different ways, and I've sent people to it. Just tell them, when you see it, do you see it? They have to see it before they can go to it. But there's always some sort of it's, and I've even thought of it as a wormhole at times too, that they pass through. It's like a lighted wormhole or
You
something.
don't have you heard of anybody, the situation where somebody passes and they wake up and they're just on the astral earth, or the afterlife. They don't go through any kinds of things. They're just there, like in the meet and greet area, for example, and they just wake up there.
um, that they weren't aware of the process of getting there, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I have talked to people that just weren't. I mean, your awareness has a lot to do with it, and then some people are just not. I mean, I've got a lot of people in my own family that have no interest in this whatsoever, none at all. And so their experience would be of their passing and whatever their belief system allowed them to remember. But a lot of them, especially people who are have lingering illnesses, along degenerative illness, especially, a lot of time they pass and they're just taken, and just immediately they're put into some sort of a resting period where they go to this meet and greet place. They're put into a resting place, and there may be a delay before the meet and greet, just till they can rest from their illness, because it's been such a trauma for them physically. And
Hmm.
to be released from it, they need some rehabilitation, sort of. And I've seen that happen. So,
It sounds like when we pass, we continue on this evolution, this growth process. But I've heard others say, oh no, you pass and then you just merge with God. What are your
No,
feelings on that? No.
no, in my feel, I mean, what my experience of that is that uh, they're wonderful, wonderful beings of light where you go, but they aren't the epitome, what we would think of as the supreme being or the creator or whatever. It's all in service to that. It's all a part of that, though. You can feel that they are part of that. And so the meet and greet is as much like this, as much like normal for the person who's passing as possible. People will appear the way they appeared when they knew them in life, because when you pass away, the body that you find yourself in your afterlife regresses back to a younger age. So when someone passes over, a family member, whatever, they will appear to them. Usually they'll appear to them like they appeared in life, so they won't be confused. There's no confusion, you know. So yeah, they try to replicate it as much as they can to what they're familiar with. So there's nothing that startles them. It's just a reunion. It's kind of a happy reunion. It's like, oh well, we really do go on, And like I said, I think my aunt, it felt to me like she was setting herself up there semi-permanently because she wanted to wait to go anywhere. I asked her if she was going to leave that place, and she said no. She had built this place. She had this place created that was large enough for every family member that passed over to stay with her and until they knew where they were going after that. But this was just, and she wanted it especially for her husband and her children. And so I'm not sure if she's still there. I haven't seen her in quite a few years. I haven't felt like
I've heard of people doing that on the astral earth as well. When I say astral earth, I just mean the afterlife, because I've heard it used both ways. But I've heard people do set up homes and start enjoying their life, waiting for their loved ones. Have you been to the astral earth as well?
I've been there. I've seen it. And it's pretty much, they just replicate pretty much everything that we do here. I mean, I wanted to know from her, my aunt, when I finally made it to see her, I had all of these questions for her. And the first visit, I didn't stay very long. I saw the house that she was being built. It was almost complete when I was there. It was almost complete. And it was huge. I went inside, it was huge. It had one wall that faced the lake was all glass. It just seemed to be all glass to me, and had stone floors inside. It was this huge lodge. It would have been a great place for family reunions and stuff. And that's what she created. She just created that. And but I've been there multiple times since then to see her and ask her other questions, and to ask her, do you get together with other people here that you don't know, that you didn't know? And so I met her there one time, and there was this big gathering. It was like it was an outdoor thing, and there were tables set up everywhere, and there was food everywhere. There's food all over the table, lots of fruit. And I said, you mean you eat food here? And she said, if we want to, we don't need it, but if we want to, we can, and it's here for you if you want it. It's like, wow, okay, so you have food, and you get together with people that you don't know. And she was talking to people at a table next to her that I didn't know who they were, and she said, yes, we do. We meet people that we did not know in life. It's just like being here. You always meet new people. So, and I talked to some of the other people, and they would tell me what they had done in life, what they, and I talked to a guy that was a surfer one time, because my aunt was asking about the family. And at the time my husband had gotten back into surfing. And I just said, oh, I'm a surfing widow now. He's gone every weekend. He wants to go surfing. And this guy that was sitting at the table next to us said, hey, I'm a surfer. I was a surfer. And I said, oh, wow. Well, you understand.
What are your thoughts on reincarnation? Is this something that you can hang out there for as long as you like, and you have to reincarnate back on Earth or another planet, or you don't have to?
The way it was explained to me a long time ago, I'm not sure how true it is. I don't know that you can choose to stay and develop on the other side. It's just that your growth there is so very slow that that's why people choose to enter third dimensional realities, because if you do experience growth, it's big growth because it's so difficult. Um, the um, the reality of this physical reality is we're limited in what we can do. It's very stressful because people can't agree on how they want our reality to be. So this is a very stressful thing. And so to come to this is to expect huge growth because you can make big strides here spiritually, but you can't stay. I was told that you could choose to stay if you wanted to, and you might stay for thousands of years and grow as much as you would in one lifetime if you decided to be physical in a third dimensional reality or whatever. Third dimensional reality is apparently the worst. It's difficult.
I wonder how many there are out there other than planet Earth, in our universe.
I can't even imagine. I'm sure there's a lot.
Plenty. Do you know if you've had a ton of past lives from all over the
I
place?
remember. Oh, I grew up remembering past lives, so I remember quite a few past lives, and none of them. I don't think any of them were particularly remarkable. Some of them were fun. Some of them were very traumatic, stressful.
All Earth
Yep.
lives?
Yeah. All that I remember, all that I have a memory of, were here.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told by others um, I had a reading by the man who was doing the readings at the Esoteric Philosophy Center in Houston, Texas in the 70s. He's very good, very good. And he told me about other lifetimes that I'd had, but those weren't something that were in, it was like, here, I remember these. I uh, remember life in the 1800s. I remember life during World War II, during the Holocaust. I remember that. I remember a life as a sailor, probably 1,000 years ago. I remember life as a woman in the early to mid 1800s. I remember life as a mother, a woman and mother there, and how I remember right up to the time of death. I remember all of that.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that we choose reincarnation as a way to move forward quickly, more quickly than we would. We choose it. My youngest son has told me, I don't care how long I have to stay in the afterlife in that place. I'm never coming back to a third density planet ever again. This is just too hard. And
A lot of people say that.
I don't blame him. It is hard. It is a hard place.
Yeah.
But
What was I thinking, right?
exactly. But the opportunity for growth is tremendous here. It really is. It's just not pleasant.
I feel I knew we were going to go way over time, but this has just been, I just don't want to stop, honestly. I actually have another, if you're okay, I did have one other question that puzzles people is how do we know how to trust the guides that come into our lives, the spirit guides or the non-physical guides, whether that's in the astral or whether that's telepathy? I know some people use rods. Have you heard of the dowsing rods?
Oh yeah, I know how to dowse.
And some people talk to their spirit guides through the dowsing rods.
Yeah.
How do we verify and trust them?
Yeah. That for myself, um, I have never. I mean, I've met some really weird beings out there that could have been harassing and whatever, and I'm just for some reason I've never been bothered by them too much, but they are there and they will take every opportunity they can. I have a spiritual teacher that I speak with once in a while because I've asked him. He talks about entities a lot and things that attach to people, and I've asked him, well, what is their thing? Why do they want to attach anyway? And he said that's their job and they're good at it. They do that. And he said it's allowed because it's if you can understand what they are and that they're separate from you and they're just trying to influence you and live a little vicariously off of you. They're you can't really say that they're evil, that they're good, whatever. They're tricksters. They're kind of, a lot of them are tricksters, and they will attach to you and try to influence your life and make you do put you through a lot of stuff. But if you can overcome that, you can recognize what's happening. You know, you just your inner guidance should keep you on your path. It should keep you on your path. You get, you know, we all get pulled to the sides by them, but they are there. They can do this. It didn't seem fair to me that they can, but they can. But they can't actually harm you. They can't harm you. They just they can, but they can influence your journey a lot, and it can throw you off your path for a bit if you let it.
Mhm.
So, but when I first had people show up astrally to help me, because before, even before that, I would see people in my room that were just so radiant and so beautiful, and the love that you feel coming from them, I learned to trust them.
Mm.
um, I was also taught in shamanic training many years ago that you should always ask anyone that you encounter, whether you encounter physically here, something's going on in your home, whatever, you just always ask them one or two things. The first thing I learned in shamanic training, just ask them, are you of the light? They have to answer you, and they have to
Mm.
answer honestly. They are required to answer honestly. So you always ask that. And if they give you the runaround or they don't answer, you just kind of assume, okay, well, you're probably not, I'm going this way, you know, and it's as simple as that. But um, another thing that I was told to ask um, in I used to be a channel medium. I had some stuff published years back in the 80s. One of the things that I was told at that time to also ask was, do you serve the universal Christ consciousness?
Mm.
And that's, ask those two things. Are you of the light? Do you serve the universal Christ consciousness? If they don't answer, or answer no, or just, you know, well, you know, just if they beat around the bush, you just, yeah, you don't have to kill them, you don't have to do anything to them, you just move away from them, you know, you just go on about your business.
Right.
You learn, I think that you learn by repeated experience with them. It's really important to kind of cultivate that
Mhm.
experience with guides so that you are trusting, and you know who you're trusting. And I'm just fortunate, I've never had anything particularly bad happen to me. I've always had a good team that helped.
And would you say, just curious, you've had both out of body near Earth and also traveled to all kinds of astral
Yeah.
realms. Which one have you had the most experiences with, or is it about even?
Probably most would be near earth experiences, because I've worked so much with people who have been in some sort of trauma, accident, illness, or something like that. So I've mostly worked with people in the process of transitioning,
Okay.
trying to help them. So I've got huge amount of time logged in near earth stuff, but I've done a lot of, like, I've gone on to the meet and greet place multiple times.
Any
Uh,
extraterrestrial
yep,
interactions?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard that you can meet them even on the afterlife, astral Earth.
Yeah. I was startled one time. I went into, I don't know how I knew that there was this ship, where it was in space. I don't even know where I was, but I knew that it was there, and I was on my way to it. And I wanted some answers to something. I don't remember what. And I just passed through the outer wall. I was in a hallway, and I could see people just look like us. You know, that upset me to see people that looked just like us. And I thought at that time, there are some earth people here. Um, and I don't like that. That made me really uncomfortable. And um, I hid. Even though I don't think that they could see me, I still would hide behind things so I wouldn't be detected. But eventually I was detected, and I was told, yeah, really aren't supposed to be here. You know, you really need to. And so I did, I left, and I got maybe 300 yards from this ship. And I went, wait a minute, I had questions. And I went back to ask something. I don't remember what I went back to ask, but I went back. I was like, no, you can't kick me out yet. I have a question. I have a couple of questions. And, but yeah, I have done that. I have seen them. I've seen multiple different kinds of entities of beings out there. I just think there's just infinite life.
So amazing. I guess we really have to close down because we have gone double time practically.
This is fun.
We have to do it again. I would love to.
Yeah.
Is there, I forgot, I was going to ask you, is there any way the listeners can connect with you? I didn't know if you had a website or, maybe books, and I can put all that in the description too if you have some book, links to the books or anything like that,
Yeah.
or
No, I've written
groups.
about it in a couple of books, but I haven't written anything yet. The more, I mean, I have some things written, but I haven't finished. And it's like the more I get written down, the more happens. And it's like, how am I ever going to write about this? How am I ever going to put this in anything? But I did have a website for years. I had a website, and then I just gave that up about 5 years ago. I said I'm going on sabbatical, and it lasted for years, for quite a few years. I just let it go, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook and Facebook Messenger. It's
Okay.
if they want to get a hold of me there. Facebook Messenger, Facebook and Facebook Messenger is
Okay, cool. Wow. Well, we're going to do this again.
Mhm.
Um, because this is too wonderful. So thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And thank you to everyone who is watching. And this has been Julie McVey with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And I hope you'll join us the next time for another fascinating interview. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, of course, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted to future videos and interviews. And I do hope you are having a wonderful day or evening wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye bye, Julie.